It's that time of the year where I have to pretend like I'm still good at Vanguard. I'll be headed down to Duluth at the beginning of December for a BCS where I'll be playing Standard Day 1, and Day 2 I might play Premium, but let's be real here, I'm probably just gonna scrub out and go play Shadowverse or hang out at Six Flags. Then, at the end of January, back down to Florida for the Kingslayer Games Championship finale season thing for last year's circuits. Check the link above to see how I qualified. Feel free to say hi, we can do some card fights, some videos maybe, I don't know, whatever you cool kids want to do. But until then, on to the show. Hey guys, I keep talking about my wife again. Leonore, please forgive me. I mean, the big marching band plant girl's still best girl, but let's be real here. This is straight up a combination Joe, monster kaiju goddess, scientist person, and I straight up did my last video on her during Valentine's Day, so. Anyways, Arkhite got plenty of new toys from Clash of Heroes, so let's talk about them. Even though Set 12's already out, and shut up, we've already been over this. But she did a good job putting those two sets out right next to each other. Anyways, let's dive on in. To start things off, you may notice that our ride line is very similar to Ava in the fact that it gets you 2 research orders when you ride each version. Like, literally, palette swap this for Ava. Only difference is, ours goes out to space to get you the first order, then she goes back inside to tell you that she loves you. Does your waifu love you? So what's the research that Arkhite does? Welcome to Torrential Research Energy Lab. Go to space. Who is that? That's like a kaiju in the background, I just noticed that. It has 2 different skills. First one was placed in the order zone. You can check your top 5, choose up to 2 different monster cards in your names, add one to hand, and put the other one in the drop zone. This can be great to help you filter out cards, and you'll see in just a second that the drop zone does help you out because skill number 2, order zone. It goes like that. Choose a card with monster's name from your drop zone and put that into your order zone, aka attached to this thing. So basically, you're going to place it, check your top 5, add one to hand, set one up for your second skill, and we'll get to that in just a second with the main Vanguard ability. Of course, we are running 4 copies of it because you want to max out the search and just put more things in the monster zone every single turn. Of course, we do run research orders, so I am checking in 2 of the first Ava one because unlike in that deck, this still sees place here. So when placed, you draw a card, discard a card, and then you have to have 3 or more research cards, including these. You can soul blast one, choose opponent's rear guard, and bind it. So it's good to have a filter draw, which you'll see is great in a second for a couple cards, also to help you set up things to put in your lab. And removal is pretty good in a deck that doesn't otherwise have too much removal. See, Ava's in the Arkhite deck. Alright, let's talk about Monster Wife's final form. Monster Creator Arkhites. Got 2 different abilities. First of all, when your rear guard with monster is placed, you can choose a card with the same name that's hanging out in your lab zone. Put that card in the bomb deck, and the card you call gets plus 10. We create our own Persona Rise, ladies and gentlemen. This basically means that whenever you place a card, if you happen to have a clone that's over here, you bomb deck that card and give the card that you just placed plus 10,000. Thus giving them a trigger boost to get over defensive. This helps out for multi-attack skills and helps you put cards back in the bomb deck so you don't deck out. Which is, of course, the main reason why we're putting cards in the monster zone in the first place, because every time you place one, it goes back in, you get a copy, so you're just gonna keep on cycling cards to drop them to monster, to deck, 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 deck. Which also helps out with her second skill, because when she attacks, you do a counter blast. Activate a couple different effects. So first of all, if your order zone happens to have 3 or more research, you can choose up to one of your monster cards, send it to space. This is good for her first ability for whenever you place cards, and because it clears the space for the second half, which says, check your top 7, choose up to 1 card with monster in its name, call it to rear guard, and shuffle that deck. So like I just said like 2 seconds ago, we are multi-attacking in here. You get about 4 to 5 attacks in this deck a turn, and those attacks are going to be hitting decent numbers thanks to her ability to strengthen whatever you play that has a clone in the zone. Of course, one of the best things about this deck being a Brandt deck is that there is a decent amount of support in here that's already monsters. Like that guy. You know our first countercharger? We ignore this mutant. That actually says monster. They ran a bunch of little mutant cards to say monster. So you got Bulbasaur in here, our countercharger, who fills up your soul, which is great for a couple different resources, and you could also have him be an 18k attacker if you want, because why not? We got Little Goblin Master that I don't think anyone plays what they could, but it says, when placed, you can choose a non-trigger unit from your drop zone, put it at the bottom of your deck, and then if you happen to choose a grade 3 or greater, Soul Blast 3, and draw a card. You're not always going to be using a slash effect, however, it is hilarious because you could use it to cycle out your Persona Rides. Most important part is it's another card that lets you cycle your deck, and of course it being a monster says that if you have his twin up there in the over there zone, he becomes 18k, and puts the other copy back in deck so he can use again later. Well, by the way, Arkhite is constantly shuffling your deck, so you're seeing the cards that you just put back in all the time. Oh, and remember how the trial deck had this little perfect guard here? He's a monster. You could tutor your perfect guards in this deck. Then rounding out our normal units, I have a bit of a discard engine in here. Starting off with this stupid card that literally came out like, what is that, set 4 I think? Something like that. Cool. Real simple skill, just one place on rear guard, draw a card, discard a card. You'd think this kind of card wouldn't matter. Like any other deck, you ignore your cycle draw card. However, he'd be a monster card. This means that you could activate all your monster cards. And this means that you could send stuff into drop zone to put back into space or whatever. But more importantly, he does create a bit of synergy for this deck, because option number 1, Pengi. You've seen Pengi in other decks. You discard him and you check your top 5 for an order. Really good for your ride line, and also really good because it works with this. Doesn't work off the lab though. Lab says you have to choose one card and put it in drop zone. So important to note that, however, Penguin totally does work with this dude or during your rad phase, so you can very easily tutor out all your different orders. And the final card, this is a new guy. You haven't seen him yet. He is the grade 1. Of course he is. He has 2 different abilities. This emancipating monster, Ralzeric or whatever, I don't know. So first of all, when discarded, thus more consistency here. If your zone has 2 or more research cards, you can counterblast 1 and call it an open rear guard. This is what I just said about the 5 attacks, because you can effectively go rear guard, okay, here's 2 rear guards, rear guard, swing Arkhite, send a card to space. Oh hey, you see his top 5. Boom. Yum. Guess what? There's 5 attacks right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or of course you call him as a booster. Good for you. You now have a column that matters, because you probably have a clone in space that you're sending back, thus making this column swole. And in addition to that, talking about power, he also has a second ability when attacks are boost. You even have this card get +5. If you do, it goes bye-bye afterwards and goes to the drop zone. So basically, it sets itself up in drop, allows for a 5th attack, and gives some really cute combos. I think like one of my favorite things to do with it has been on the ride phase to go into my Arkhite. I say, okay, cool, discard this for ride. I now have 2 orders guaranteed from the first 2 turns. So counterblast 1, he comes out. If I had a clone there, return it. He's a 23k on his own for free. Well, counterblast 1, but you know what I mean. It's a good card. Then last but not least, you know him, you love him. Here comes the triggers. This is the over trigger we use, always. This is a Brandt deck. It would be funny to see a Brandt deck ever not run this trigger. It just, why would you not want to double your field's power and allow crits? It's Bushiroad, whatever you say what you want. This card shouldn't exist. All the others you question. This card is stupid, broken, powerful. I use fronts. I use crits. It's a good mix of them. And 4 heals. There they are. Cool. Trigger wise, we are going with 5 and 6 right now. I can see switching around however you want, because this is ultimately a 4-attack deck. However, crit pressure early on is very important when your later attacks are just going to be swallowed their own and it's hard to guard. So the general flow of this deck is that you're going to have a bunch of different kinds of monsters in your zone. So whenever you play a clone, you're able to send whatever that copy is back to bomb deck, give it more strength, thus making big numbers that you could easily hit 40k on your first grade 3 turn. And with Arkhite's ability, you send more cards to space, search your deck to constantly shuffle and call cards, allowing for 4 to 5 attacks with big numbers. Pretty basic, but it do what it do. It thins, it cycles, and you hit triggers a lot. Probably the best deck in format. And your wife who actually loves you. Bonus clip, here's a couple other old kaiju options that I just don't have room for in this kind of build anymore. This 3-headed boy is another new card that says when it's placed in the order zone, you're going to give your Arkhite +5 power. This is really good with Arkhite's ability to help you strengthen the Vanguard's attack, because as you may notice, we're only really strengthening our rear guard outside of a Persona ride, so maybe consider if you want some more power on Vanguard. This helps you further strengthen everything that's in your zone, because it sends a card from your drop zone to the zone when you play it, and it's like 10k shield, I guess. Good defensive, I just never really see reason to play this, because you're always going to have a pretty set up monster zone, like 95% of the time. Tool Gojira, because they're the baby Gojira. The big boy is your blast away of the deck, giving you counterblast 1 to choose one of your opponents with a grade equal to or less than number of research orders and retire it. Therefore, as long as you have at least 3 out, you're going to be able to pop basically anything. But I mean, let's be real, most of the time you want to get rid of an interceptor if you really want to retire something, so whatever. He also gets +5 if you have things, so he's a big boy. 18 on his own, 28 if you have a copy to send back. Not a bad card, just don't have room for it anymore. This is your replacement for Goblin, I guess. I don't know. has a Soul Blast 2 cost, which isn't as bad as the Soul Blast 3 cost to let you draw a card, and it also gets a +5 if you have researchers, just like his big brother. So another time that's going to be a 13, 23k beater, booster, whatever you want it. Not bad, just not really Ream since I only really have 2 goblins in the deck, and you want to run 4 copies of this boy. So one of the strange things about running this is that you do want to have a weird mix of maxing and not maxing the deck, because the way you search and constantly revolve cards around, sometimes having 2 to 3 is fine, but you will see staples that you of course want to run 4 of. And of course this is a Brandt deck, so you can run some good Brandt cards, I guess. I mean, they're not monsters, and this is a very travel deck, so you want to run as many monsters as humanly possible. Otherwise, it's good cards, though. I run them in other Brandt decks. Yeah, I gotta show off this Arkhite shirt again. I freaking love this Arkhite shirt. It's just in the Kaiju onesie of the grade 3 guy. I love it. It's adorable. So anyways, that was one of the Brandt decks that came out of Set 11. And there's 2 more that we gotta dive into, so make sure you subscribe, because I'm pretty excited to show those off, especially a certain one that may or may not be a common rider. This thing still, yeah, this works. Go into space. Put up Among Us things right now. Until that happens, always, I'm not tossing that, embrace the infinite.